Hi guys, it's Maria Willis from Card Bomb here for Tonic Studios, and today's Stamp Club number 4 launched, and this release is called Shoot for the Moon. There's so much that you can do with this release, so let's head over to my desk and take a closer look at the release.
This Shoot for the Moon stamp and die bundle is full of moons, stars, magical galaxy backgrounds, and elements like trees and mountains so that you can create beautiful landscape designs. It was designed so that some of the stamps and dies can work together and that some of the elements can also work separately. Today I'll be taking a closer look at many of the individual elements of this bundle so that you can get the most out of your stamp and die set. I'm going to start by focusing on this full moon stamp, and I'm going to show you a variety of different ways to achieve different looks with it. First, I'm going to stamp it in gray ink onto white cardstock. Now I'm rotating my paper and I'm going to stamp it again. This time I'm going to stamp it in a blue ink. I'm using Nuvo hybrid inks on purpose today because these are permanent inks. I can use them with watercolor or alcohol-based products and they will not smear. Now I'm moving on to a lighter blue ink because I want to show you how to do some two-tone stamping. I just stamped dark blue ink around the edge of my moon and blotted it off to get a two-toned look on my moon. This is a great technique for adding realistic shadows to your moon and even to the trees in this stamp set. Taking a look at the stamp set, you can see that there isn't a stamp for adding background color to this moon, so I'm going to show you how to do that. Take the moon stamp and flip it over so that the smooth side is against your paper. Next, ink up your stamp and stamp with the back side of the stamp directly onto your paper. This will result in an uneven texture, which, if you ask me, is realistic for a moon. I used my ink cube to fill in that empty spot, but you could also use a marker or just leave the lighter spot as it would look like a highlight. So here's a closer look at that two-tone moon and that yellow background, as well as a look at how the stamp looks when it's heat embossed. Now I want to show you how to get some background color on these other full moons that we stamped. And I'm going to show you a couple different ways. This time I've used the full moon die to cut a mask from regular paper. You could also cut a mask out of acrylic or out of masking paper. I'm using an ink blending brush and some yellow ink to ink over the top of that mask, and you can see that I have a perfect background that stayed within the lines of the moon. If you are going to be die cutting your moon, you don't have to worry about staying in the lines. And in that case, you can use one of these large flat brushes to get a really soft, smooth background. Here's a closer look at both of those backgrounds, and remember that you can always stamp this stamp straight onto colored cardstock too. So if you don't want to ink blend, that's not a problem. While I had that ink out, I decided to go ahead and ink the background of that two-toned moon as well, and now it's a three-toned moon. Now I'm grabbing my yellow Aquaflow marker and putting a drop of that onto one of my acrylic stamping blocks. This is a moon that I stamped off camera onto watercolor paper. So this is a really easy way to get a watercolor background on these moons as well. If you stamp onto a larger piece of watercolor paper and you don't want to ink blend, you don't want to risk going out of the lines, this is a really easy way to do it. Another really fun thing to do with these moons is to make stickers to seal your envelopes. So grab your adhesive sheets, which are basically double-sided sticky paper, and stick one of your moons onto there. Now you're going to grab the circle that die cuts the moon, tape it down, pop it between your cutting plates, and run it through your die cutting machine. When it comes out, it will be cut perfectly around the moon, and you'll be able to peel the backing off to create a sticker. It will seal your envelope nicely. Moving on to focus on the dies that coordinate with these moons. This full moon also has an embossing plate, as does the half moon. These embossing plates can be used optionally to add texture to your full and half moons. You will get the most detailed embossing if you use softer papers, such as this holographic paper or like watercolor paper. The bundle also includes this great half moon that has so much detail to it. It both cuts and embosses the paper when you use it. Next, I'm going to show you another way to use these embossing plates besides embossing. Layer your embossing plate over a die cut moon, tape it on, and use it to ink blend. So basically you're going to use it just like a stencil. Here I'm stenciling in green ink, but I've also already done this in a couple other colored inks that I thought looked really good. So here I've done it in a bluish purple ink, and here I did it in gray, but then I used my Nuvo drops to embellish it even further. I've been really excited to use my glow-in-the-dark Nuvo drops with this bundle, and I think this is the perfect opportunity. I'm going to use the moon that I just stenciled and use those stenciled parts as a guide to putting on my Nuvo drops. When I turn out the lights, it glows and it is so cool. I hope you guys will think that that's as fun as I do. To create a more realistic looking moon, just squirt some stone drops onto your moon, dip your finger in to add peaks, and when it dries, you'll have a moon that looks like this. Now we're going to be moving on to this tree stamp, and I'm going to show you how I stamp using gradient color to create depth and dimension. I'm starting by stamping my trees in my lightest color higher up on the paper so that these trees will appear as that they are further back in my scene. Next, I'm switching to the next lightest color and again stamping just below those trees. I will continue doing this with darker colors until my whole scene is built. Now there might be some spots at the bottom where you can see the white cardstock, and we will resolve that by ink blending in one of the darker colors at the bottom. Here's a look at a card that I made using this exact technique and the same colors. This card features the same tree stamp stamped in black for a more of a silhouetted look. This third card uses the same stamp layering technique with gradient color, but I've extended further over to the side so that I could create a slimline card. Now let's take a closer look at this mountain range stamp. I'm going to be stamping it in water-based ink onto watercolor paper. This is what it looks like if you stamp it and don't do anything more to it. I wanted to add shading to the mountain range, so I'm using a wet paintbrush with no ink on it. I'm using the water to drag the ink from the stamped image into the areas of the mountain that don't currently have any color. So do not add ink unless you want it to be much darker than this. All I'm doing is using the water to move the color that is already on the paper. This is a really easy technique for adding shading to these mountains. Make sure that you constantly clean your brush so that the water stays clean and you can easily drag the color without it becoming too dark. Off to the side I have an acrylic block, and you can see that I've dabbed a little bit of blue ink onto it. I'm going to use that blue ink to add some highlights to my mountain range. So I just picked up a little bit of ink. It was more color than I wanted, so I cleaned off my brush, added water, and I'm using that water now to move the blue ink around. Where I need more color, I just pick a little bit of extra ink up off of that block and add it to my mountain range. This is a nice way to add shadowing into that mountain range in multiple colors. Here's a look at what that looks like, and if you'd like to see how you might turn that into a card, this is what I did. I added water below the mountain range and an ink blended moon behind the mountain range to complete my scene. Now let's take a look at these scene building dies. One of the mountain ranges matches the stamp that we just watercolored. The other one is a standalone die, and you can use it facing either direction, and this tree die is also a standalone die. All of these dies are open on the bottom end. What this means is that you can cut them from tall or short pieces of paper to build the height of the card the way you want it to be. Just stack and layer those die cuts to add dimension, texture, and beautiful landscapes to your cards. Of course, you can use these dies to create stencils to build your backgrounds as well, but right now I'm going to show you how to use these dies with masking paper. Masking paper is sticky paper that's easily removed from your cardstock, so you don't have to worry about tearing your cardstock. I've cut some masking paper with this tree die, and now I'm going to peel the backing off and stick my mask onto a paper tag. I'm going to stick a piece of paper behind that so I can ink blend, and I'm just using an ink blending brush to add color. I'm starting out by adding this deep blue to the base of the trees, and then I'm going to extend some purple into that sky. When I peel the mask off, you can see that it has given me perfectly clean edges, and now I'm going to go ahead and use the negative portion of that mask to protect the background that I've just ink blended, so that now I can ink blend the trees. This is a really easy way to add some detail to cards, to tags, and to any of your other projects. On this card, I've used it on the background and then put the large die cut moon in front of it to frame my little forest scene. Now I want to show you some cards that I've used incorporating all of the techniques that we've used today. While you take a look at the cards, I wanted to let you know that this Shoot for the Moon bundle is available now exclusively from Tonic Studios at Tonic Studios UK and USA. If you're interested in seeing more samples and inspiration using this beautiful bundle, please head to my blog at cardbomb.com. And if you're interested in heading straight to Tonic Studios either to shop or find out more information, please click the link in the description box below. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope the techniques that I've shared will inspire you to create many cards and projects of your own. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comment box below and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Bye for now, and I hope you all have an amazing day.